They gathered where the hills met the sky. The land was dry, the kind of dry that cracked earthen lips, that made the wind taste of dust and silence. No rain had touched the valley for months, and the riverbed had become a memory, a path of pebbles and ghosts. But today, the rainmakers had arrived. They came from different places. They didn't wear robes or feathers or carry staffs carved with runes. Some wore jeans and sandals. Some carried instruments, drums, flutes, bones strung with bells. Others brought only silence. They did not promise rain. They only promised to call it. Among them was a woman named Mara. She walked barefoot, her ankles tattooed with rings of dark blue ink. She didn't speak much. Her hands were stained with ochre from the pigments she ground herself, and her voice, when she did use it, sounded like a storm remembered. The rainmakers didn't believe in magic the way books did. They believed in rhythm, in resonance, in the body's memory of water. The villagers watched from the edge of the gathering circle. Children clutched their parents' hands. Old men shook their heads. Skeptics and dreamers stood side by side. And then it began. Not with a song, not with fire, but with listening. The rainmakers sat in silence for what felt like an hour, eyes closed, hands resting on knees, ears tuned to the whisper of air through dry grass. One of them touched the ground and leaned close. "The earth," she said, "still remembers wetness." Mara began to draw. She used ochre and charcoal, drawing long, looping shapes in the dust. Her fingers moved as if remembering, not inventing. The lines twisted into waves, into seeds, into the curl of a sleeping animal. Then came the first beat. A drum, low and steady, pulsed from the chest of a tall man named Ko. He struck it with his palm, soft but certain. The beat echoed across the hill. Another joined in, this one a higher rhythm, from a string instrument made of gourd and sinew. Then a whistle. Then feet tapping. Not music. A calling. The villagers leaned in. Children crept forward, drawn by the sound. Mara kept drawing, her hands now black with soot and ochre, her lines stretching outward from the center like tributaries. Then the voices began. Not words, not chants. Sounds. Mouths open to the wind. Moans, hums, sighs. Some like birds. Some like thunder. Some like grief. And slowly something shifted. The wind changed. Just slightly. A leaf turned. A dog lifted its head. Ko struck the drum harder now, sweat on his brow. Two women clapped in sync, their arms rising and falling like wings. One of the elders in the village stepped forward and added her voice, a tremble, cracked but clear. Mara stood. She stepped into the center of the circle, and walked the spiral she had drawn. Each footfall released a small puff of dust. She raised her arms, said nothing. And the air thickened. It was not yet rain, but it was the memory of rain. The kind that lives in the skin, in old seeds, in the spaces between heartbeat and breath. For hours they continued. More villagers joined. Some danced. Some wept. Some stood still, and listened to a rhythm they didn't know they remembered. And then, just as the sun began to lower, just as the dusk glowed gold, there was a sound. Soft. Sharp. The first drop hit Mara's shoulder. She didn't flinch. Then another. Then a scatter. Then the sky opened. It wasn't a storm. Not yet. But it was enough. Enough to dampen the dust. To send children laughing through puddles. To make the old men stare at the sky with wet cheeks and open mouths. Mara crouched and pressed her palm to the earth. "Thank you," she whispered, "for remembering us." The villagers brought blankets, food, lanterns. That night, The rainmakers did not perform. They sat by the fire and listened to the rain tapping on tents and leaves and stone. Some sang softly. Others slept. Mara stayed awake, watching steam rise from the ground. One of the children came to her. "Did you really make it rain?" he asked. Mara smiled. "No," she said. "We only reminded the world how." And when the rain stopped long before dawn, it left behind a hush so deep and clean it sounded like hope. The next morning, the villagers awoke to damp soil, the scent of grass, and lines in the earth where rivers would soon return. The rainmakers had already gone. No footprints. No trace. Except for the spiral, still etched in the dust, still whispering.